So, Aparajit,
Yes, sir.
very interesting name.
Thank you, sir.
Hopefully, you know the meaning also.
Yes, sir.
What is it?
So it means invincible.
Invincible.
Yes, sir.
So what is the problem of being invincible?
So the major problem is that you never fail. So you cannot learn you cannot learn from the failures, which I believe are the stepping stones to success.
Stepping stones to success. Have you failed ever?
Yes, sir, definitely. However, I believe that turning those losses into my victories would be only if I can learn from them. So that
could you be a bit less critical about it and give us the details? How did you fail? What did you learn?
Sir, I have faced many failures. For example, whether it is academics or the lawn tennis like I played. So I was down in the first round itself, and I was my district champion at that time. But as soon as I went to IIT Bombay, I was like almost in the bottom 5. So there I learned, and
how did it affect you?
Sir, it gave me motivation. Initially, it was definitely a setback, but then I converted it into motivation, and I joined the NSO classes. I trained, and till 4th year, I was able to reach the semi-finals in the inter hostels.
You're talking about lawn tennis?
Yes, sir, in lawn tennis.
All right. Any favorites in lawn tennis?
Sir, I like Roger Federer.
Like Roger Federer, sir. Why? What aspect of Roger Federer do you like?
Sir, the main thing is that his passion for success has never gone down. He has always tried to be better than himself because he has been on the number 1 position for 5.5 years continuously. And then you have a very less motivation to succeed.
He had been?
Yeah, now currently he is not. He currently is number 3.
So you are attributing everything to his passion for victory, for playing, for winning.
Yes, sir. And also obviously the calm and composed he is on the court. Not
calm and composed that he is
on the court.
So can we say that he is your role model?
So he has definitely inspired me in a lot of things. However, not just him, I would consider a lot of people who have inspired me in different ways.
So how important is aptitude and how important is attitude in life? So which one's more important?
So I think that attitude is more important because aptitude one can learn. One can be trained to gain a type of aptitude and become skillful in that field. However, for changing the attitude, it takes a very long time. And
you're not precluding the possibility that even attitude can...
Yes, sir, definitely. It can be changed. However, I believe that because it starts building at a very young age, when your mind is very impressionable. So, to change it also takes many more efforts.
Many more efforts.
Yes, sir.
Any examples of attitude changes in sport that you might have come across?
So, since we are talking about lawn tennis, I can say about Nick Kyrgios, his behavior in the court. He is very aggressive. He has been charged many times of use of offensive language.
So, is he an example of attitude change? Has he changed?
No, that I'm saying that how his attitude has not changed because he has been like that since his.
You're saying it is difficult to change.
Yes, sir. So it is difficult to change.
But aptitude-wise, he is?
He is number 6 right now. So
number 6.
Yes, sir.
How do you rate him as a player apart from that ATP ranking? Skill-wise.
So skill-wise, obviously he is on number 6 spot in the world. So he's definitely one of the best. However, I would like to quote Rafael Nadal. He said that he can be a champion but can never become a legend with that attitude. All right.
So you were born on the 28th of May.
Yes, sir.
Any significance of this date?
Not that I can remember.
That you can remember. Never bothered to find out. Any famous personalities that you share your birthday with?
Sorry, sir, I haven't looked into it.
You haven't? Your option is political science. Yes. Why is it a science? Is it pseudoscience?
Sir, I would not say that it is a pseudoscience because in the modern times it has acquired the traits of the scientific knowledge, the rationality which is required in scientific subjects. So earlier it used to be called as the political theory. However, after the behavior revolution, it has acquired these traits.
So what is the difference between political science, political philosophy and political theory?
Sir, political
and politics.
Sir, political theory is are the thoughts, the combination of thoughts which are of a particular thinker. Political philosophy determines the different theories which are given for a particular period. And it is mostly determined by the ethics and the morality prevailing at that time. For example, we talk about the political philosophy of ancient Greek or political philosophy of modern times, the Industrial Revolution. And political science tries to balance the ethics, morality, along with the scientific and the provable methods. It talks about what is rather than what ought to be. And politics is the practical application of these aspects in the political life.
I'll come back again to my question. What is scientific about political science? You told me rationality, scientific approach that was adopted. Any examples?
Sir, in the practical life, we can see that today data analytics has become very important in politics. For example, the tracking of electoral behavior of the voters, or the advertising campaigns are designed on the basis like where the strong suit of the constituency.
So electoral field is one where this claim of being science to a certain extent holds some ground. It cannot entirely be science. Would you agree with that?
So I believe that the nature of subject is that it has to balance between both the things.
It has to balance between both the things. Yes. Can morality ever be scientific?
Yes, sir. I believe that it can be. For example, M. Roy gave the concept of radical humanism, in that he told how we can manage humanist approach with the scientific approach, and how scientific temper can actually turn into the...
M. Roy is not very popular, not remembered.
Yes, sir.
Any other example?
When morality can be scientific.
Can it ever be scientific? It's alright. The second question was, is science moral, immoral, or amoral?
Sir, that depends upon the person who is using science. For example, Albert Einstein or Newton, they have done a lot, many things. Maybe just considering Albert Einstein, on one side he gave us quantum physics, which is currently used in space technologies. On the other hand, he also gave us nuclear technology.
Is science concerned with morality? That's my precise question. Is science concerned with morality?
Sir, science is concerned with innovation, and that innovation can be used in the good or the bad way.
So then, by your definition, science is amoral. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. I would agree with that.
You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now my question is, have you heard of Hannah Arendt?
Yes, sir.
She talked about banality of evil.
Yes, sir.
What is all that about?
Sir, banality in common language means commonality. That means when the evil becomes so common that everyone, the population feels that evil is the actually right thing, then it is called banality of evil. She gave the example of the Jews being massacred by in Germany by Nazism in Nazism period, and no one used to raise the voice against that because everyone believed that it was the right thing to do. So that was the practical application of banality of evil.
So how relevant is she currently? Say, let's say in India.
So I believe that it is very relevant because the mob lynching cases which we are currently seeing somehow shows this type of behavior where the mob is taking the laws in its own hands. However, it is considering that they are doing.
But it is not following orders, is it? The mob is not following orders. Whereas the Nazi officials justified it that they were following orders. They did not see anything right or wrong into it.
So I believe even the mobs are influenced by a kind of ideology, whether it is political, religious, or social. So,
can you articulate, name that ideology? What is that ideology?
So there is no one particular ideology. Each move can be influenced by different ideas.
What is radicalization?
So the influence of the radical ideas, for example, terrorism is one of it.
Terrorism
Terrorism is the outcome of radicalization.
is the outcome of radicalization.
Yes.
But it cannot be an example of radicalization. Okay. Terrorism.
Yes.
Could you just briefly run us through the history of terrorism in the realm of political ideas? Political science में classically पढ़ते थे.
So there have been different explanations how terrorism rose in the political ideology. One of them is the relative deprivation, that it was the marginalized and the weaker sections who thought that the only way to achieve prosperity was to overthrow the state through violent methods. Then other explanation is that terrorism is the outcome of state method, because international politics is a struggle for power, and because the wars due to modern technology have become very costly, the conventional wars. So state actors have sponsored these terrorists to achieve their national interest. These two I can recall right now.
Okay, I was more of hoping going into the 19th century, talking about the anarchists, so on and so forth. In any case, good. Sir,
Thank you, sir.
So, Prajit,
Yes.
You are a student of political science.
Yes, sir.
What is your liking of the political theory? Which political theory do you like the most?
So there is no one political thinker. However, if I have to choose one, I would choose Kautilya.
Kautilya.
Yes, sir.
Why so, and do you think that he is still relevant in current times?
Sir, I like him because his book Arthashastra is holistic in itself. It is concerned about the political administration, the society, economy, politics, as well as the international relations. So that is why I like him being a holistic in his approach.
What about the relevance?
And also the relevance which is present in current times. For example, is Mandal Siddhant is currently relevant, that enemy is your the neighbor is your enemy, and enemy's enemy is your best friend.
Could you give me an example in the respect of India's foreign policy?
Sir, definitely our immediate neighbor, that is Pakistan, is considered to be a very big challenge for our foreign policy.
So, who is our friend in terms of Pakistan? Who is our enemy's enemy? Pakistan's enemy.
Sir, all the other neighbors, for example, Bangladesh, Nepal, the members of the SARC.
Do you think they are Pakistan's enemy?
Sir, they are not exactly enemy of Pakistan. However, at least in the recent times, they have supported India against counter-terrorism.
Don't you think that if you should have given the example of Japan or the other Quad countries in respect of China, that would more fit into this specific case of enemy? Okay, let us leave it. So, there have been from certain sections of society, there has been application that India should adopt a presidential form of governance. Are you in favor of it?
Sir, I believe that India, being a multicultural society, would not be able to pursue its national interests in a presidential form of government.
Are we able to achieve it in the current form?
Sir, I believe that we are being a very vibrant democracy even after 70 years of independence, when all the other post-colonial states have failed, for example in Africa.
So, being a democracy is different. I am asking you the form of democracy.
Yes, sir.
Being a presidential form of democracy also, we can be a vibrant democracy.
Yes, sir.
But when you say that India will not be able to achieve its national interest, why do you say so?
Sir, because parliamentary form of democracy gives the chance for each constituency in our country to send their representatives to the parliament, and out of those, a cabinet is formed, and it is not the outside influence, which is in the case of the presidential government, where the executive is completely detached from legislature.
But there will be legislature.
Yes, sir.
So,
However,
public's opinions and representation will be there.
Yes, sir.
Despite of the executive being independent of the legislature.
So, but due to the watertight compartment between the legislature and executive, there is no accountability of the executive. There is just one tool, that is impeachment, and it is currently going on in USA. However, it is bound to fail.
It is bound to fail.
So, as per the trends and as per the news.
So, you have been this participant of this Model United Nations.
Yes.
Which country did you represent?
Sir, I was the Director General.
Director General.
Yes, sir. So I was concerned with the logistics, food, and these.
Suppose you had to choose one country there. So, on what criteria you would have gone ahead in terms of choosing that particular country?
Sir, there were different committees in the Model United Nations. So my choice would also be in that frame. For example, there was one of UNHRC in which the agenda was Palestine and Israel conflict and the humanitarian crisis. So in that, definitely I would have liked to be influential country, either who is in direct role there. For example, either USA or Israel or Palestine.
So what kind of stand you would have taken for Palestine? Suppose if you were asked to do so.
Sir,
you are representing Palestine,
yes,
in that particular committee or in that Model United Nations. What will be your arguments in support of Palestine?
So my arguments, first one would be to completely give up the arms and follow the Oslo Accord of 1997, and I would sponsor the two-state accord, two-state solution for Palestine and Israel, and also the United Nations resolution that Jerusalem should be a shared capital.
Which resolution is that?
Sir, I'm not exactly sure of the.
Is there even such a resolution by the UN?
UNHRC, sir. So, UNHRC resolution is there.
UNHRC resolution? And Jerusalem has a united capital. You cite the number and the year of the resolution.
Have you read it somewhere? Or?
Sir, I have read it, but I'm not sure which organ of the UN was in the resolution was passed. Either it was UNESCO or UNHRC, but I'm not really sure.
So there have been a lot of talk that India requires $1 trillion in terms of its infrastructure spending. You have been this infrastructure manager of your campus, right? Suppose you were given the charge of country's infrastructure development. How do you manage it?
Sir, my first priority would be to get the infrastructure projects which are currently suffering from cost and time overrun, get them out of the red tapeism, and make the pipeline much more efficient.
I think that would be your call to take, because that would be taken by the cabinet, because I just want you to know how will you prioritize the infrastructure in the country.
Okay, as in the sectors of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Sir, I would give more stress on the inland waterways.
Inland waterways?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The recent multimodal project has been completed between Haldia and Varanasi. So that, considering that as a pilot project, that can be implemented in other 104 national waterways also.
So do you think it is such a simple task that you will be able to prioritize these 100 rivers over your construction of national highways or railways? You don't even have that kind of a budget that you will be spending so much on those 100 rivers.
So, given India's commitment towards environment and also the dilapidated state of the railways and roadways, they are overburdened. So, we definitely need to look at.
I'm not questioning the intent. So, I'm questioning how will you go about it. Is it really feasible what you are saying? Taking another example, there was a comment by the infrastructure minister around 3 years back that once this inland waterway will pass, there will be a 2% growth of Indian economy. It will add to 2% growth. So why it has not happened? Rather, we have tanked in terms of our economic growth.
So I don't have the exact stats.
No problem. How will this rap music help you in civil services?
Sir, rap music majorly comes from the socially disadvantaged and the underprivileged sections. For example, the biggest artists of India have come from Dharavi, the biggest slums in India.
Is it a generic or general rule, or is it just an observed phenomenon?
Sir, it somehow derives itself from the origin of the rap music. It began in America, where the African American population or the blacks.
No. Let us redirect the question.
Yes.
You were telling me of the disadvantage section. So,
Yes.
are you linking that since rap music is observed in is coming from that section of the society, so it will help you in civil services?
So, sir, because I have I have some interest in rap music, so I have listened to those rappers and I understand the issues.
I get your point.
Yes.
You are not from the disadvantaged society,
Yes.
right? You have learned it how you have learned. For example, you must have learned it from the YouTube or the other kind of mediums. It has originated from a disadvantaged section. How will it help you in terms of your civil services approach?
So it has opened my mind to different perspectives. Because coming from a privileged section, I would have never understood the issues which a person living in Dharavi would have faced. So,
Give me some examples. Suppose you are made the collector of in some place. For example, let us take a neutral state like Odisha. How will your experiences in Dharavi help you in Odisha?
Sir, I would say that all the marginalized sections of the society have a common problem. That is, they believe that there is a trust deficit between the state and that section of the population. They believe that the state is working for the elite class. And therefore, I would like to first bridge that trust deficit in the Odisha, which is also a major problem because the tribal population living there has a major trust deficit with the administration. So it would be beneficial for me that I gain their trust.
You have gained this insight from rap music that there is a trust deficit, or you were aware of this before rap music and or after this studies of UPSC?
Sir, it has been from overall, because even in the rap music, I can give you an example. There is a song by Divine, Born in a Gutter. In that, he gives the example like how his brother was shot by the police without any charges in a fake encounter, and so that increased the trust deficit. So,
taking this thing forward, why do you think we have not been able to eradicate manual scavenging? Still, we face deaths, right? People who are going into the gutters. How should we go about it?
Sir, I would say that it has been an implementation deficit of the Manual Scavenger Act, Prohibition Act of 2016. Also, it is entrenched due to the caste discrimination of our society, which is not instilled only in the minds of the higher caste but also in the lower caste, who also believe that they are born to do that work. So, that is a major problem from the societal perspective.
How will you address it? Last question.
Sir, my approach would be two-pronged. First one would be law enforcement, that the act is implemented in letter and spirit, and the culprits are brought to the book. The second would be the rehabilitation of the manual scavengers, the provisions which are there in the scheme that would be given.
That will be done by any other officer. But I want you to ask this. Could you give me an example where you will be using rap music to bring that attitudinal change in both the types of castes?
So I will think about it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Invincible, I can see that your mother tongue is Hindi.
Yes.
When is World Hindi Day?
When is?
World Hindi Day.
Sorry, sir. I will look into it.
When is Hindi Divas?
Sorry, sir.
Why is there a need to even promote? Because recently, if you have followed the news, that India wants, passed a resolution or made the proposal that Hindi should be made an official language at even GA. Okay. Why is there even a need to promote Hindi at the global level?
So, given the trend of globalization and the fast migration which is happening, Indians can be found in almost all the countries. And going by the population, we represent about 1/6 of the globe. So it would be beneficial for the migrants as well as the other.
In what ways?
Sir, it would be in terms of foreign policy, it would definitely serve as a soft power, going our cultural and tradition, that is Hindi.
What is soft power?
So soft power can be defined as the ability to influence the decisions of other countries by not by the use of force, but by use of your culture, tradition.
Have you been able to do that in recent
India.
Have you been able to influence other countries through our soft power? Give me 2 examples.
So the first one would be our Africa outreach, where although the our economic strength or our investment or the trade is not comparable to China. However, India is always seen as a very benevolent country, and Africans hold a very good image for India. On the other hand, the Chinese investments are being thwarted, and the local population is.
So what is the soft power there?
So we are using the. We are giving them scholarships. I cannot recall the program we are running for that.
Have you heard of International Yoga Day?
Yes, sir.
Is it soft power?
Yes, sir, definitely.
So why was that date chosen, 21st June, as International Yoga Day?
Sir, because it is the longest day in terms of sunlight.
What is the term used? Okay, fine. As I can see that you have passed out from IIT Bombay and you have a chemical engineering degree.
Yes.
From one of the premier institutes in India. And I believe that not many would have that privilege, and you could really do well in your degree. So why you want to come into civil services? What features in civil services attracts you?
So there was always an indirect push towards civil services since childhood. For example, whenever I used to dress up, my grandmother used to say, "Aaj mera beta collector lag raha hai." And once I went to college, I talked to my seniors who were preparing for civil services. They actually showed me that how civil services can give me a diverse opportunity to serve the society, give me job security, and give me more challenges. Where
serving the society or the diverse job? Which one would you prioritize as your attraction points?
So my first priority would be serving the society.
So then join an NGO, right? You will serve the society for joining an NGO. Why you have to come to civil service? So are you saying that by staying out of civil services, you cannot serve the society or you will not be able to contribute to the nation's development?
No, sir, definitely not. Because I believe that I believe in Gandhian philosophy that whether it is a labor or a lawyer, both of them, if they are doing their duty right, they are serving the society.
So then why civil services?
Sir, because I believe that through civil services, my contribution would be more direct. I will be able to change as well as perceive the change which I will bring in the life of the people by working on the field itself.
Okay, let's take a situation. Let's say you are posted in your home garden.
Yes.
Haryana. Okay, and as all of us know that it is infamous for low sex ratio. Yes, some steps have been taken. How do you go about tackling the situation? First of all, why is there such a skewed ratio? And if so, what would be your steps?
So, different scholars have analyzed why Haryana has skewed sex ratio. So, that can be the historical factors. For example, it has always been a frontier state and an agrarian economy. So, there was always a preference for the male child who is better in the physical characteristics.
So, it's the same with Punjab, right?
Yes, sir.
So, why is that Haryana's sex ratio is even worse?
then once the changes, because Punjab is more prosperous economically than Haryana. As soon as, and moreover, Haryana comes in a close vicinity to NCR. So there was direct transfer of the new technology, the modern techniques of sex selection and abortion. So that was also a major cause why its sex ratio remains skewed.
These are the two reasons for.
And sir, the other one is obviously the prevailing patriarchy in the minds of the people, where Haryana has become like an onion, where the outermost peel has become modernized. However, the centermost is still deeply rooted in tradition. For example, the Khap panchayats. So that is a major issue.
So what steps are you going to take to rectify this?
Sir, in the recent times, a lot of steps have been taken and they have been proven to be fruitful. Now the sex ratio is 9:31. Sir, the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme has been launched, and it has been launched in different variants in Haryana. For example, Meri Beti Ka Tiranga was recently launched, a campaign by the Chief Minister.
So what more can be done? What would you do other than these comments?
So there have to be better implementation of all these laws. For example, the PCP and DT Act, and these campaigns to bring about the attitudinal change will have to go on.
Okay, now yesterday there was this budget which was presented.
Yes.
So what is your take on the budget? Do you think that this is going to somehow solve the current slowdown that our economy in any ways, if you think so?
Sir, I would say that the government has done very well, not crumbling to the pressures of the economic slowdown and taking some drastic steps.
What are the drastic steps?
Such as completely going off the fiscal deficit, like it was recommended by many economists that government can weaken its stand on the fiscal deficit.
So it stood by, it did not break.
It did not cut loose entirely. However, it has loosened it a bit, which is in a controllable limit. So definitely.
What is the FRB Act say?
So it says that by 2022, the fiscal deficit should be reduced to 3%.
Okay.
And currently, for this year, the
only fiscal deficit?
Fiscal deficit to 3%, and the effective revenue deficit to 0%.
Are you going towards that?
So, sir,
what is the basic difference? What is the rationale behind reducing revenue deficit? See, the target is revenue deficit has to be zero.
Yes,
effectively. So, but in recent times we see that it's the other way around. Now, revenue expenditure is increasing. So, why? What is the reason? Like, what steps we need to take to rectify this? What was the rationale behind the FRB Act?
So the rationale behind it was that that the macroeconomic stability of the country, of the economy, is ensured.
What are the parameters of knowing that the macroeconomics of the country is doing good?
So that the revenues and the expenditure remains in a proper ratio against each other. For example, if
let's move on. So, new question. What are the major pillars of any economy? The driving forces of any economy? There are 4 pillars.
So,
can you name that for me?
So, it is labor.
Is it labor? Okay, go ahead. Next.
Land.
Are the pillars of any economy? Are the driving pillars of any economy? Or are the factors of production? Okay, fine. Last question from my side. So you're unmarried, right?
Yes.
Can you propose to the class? Water.
Okay. Sir, I would like to sing a song. Really sorry, my voice.
You'll be using rap music also?
No, sir. पानी दा रंग वेख के पानी दा रंग वेख के. Thank you, sir.
You talked about Khap Panchayat.
Yes, sir.
Why is it a problem?
So majorly because it is an extra constitutional body who is trying to take.
On one hand, we are proposing arbitration, conciliation, mediation, and not going to the legal system. On the other side, we say no to Khap Panchayat. Why?
Sir, whatever bodies are proposed for mediation or arbitration, they have to be regulated, and there is no such regulation or a law that has been passed for regulating the Khap Panchayats.
So if you bring a law for their regulation, do you think they're right in the system? We need Khap Panchayat.
Sir, going as per the Supreme Court judgment, they are.
What do you think? So you've stayed in Haryana. So there is, even after the Supreme Court judgment, there are still a lot of Khap Panchayats going on because the society has value for them. So what do you think?
So I believe that they should not be there, and instead of them, if you have to bring an arbitration mechanism, it should be brought from through a law, so that their relevance is completely uprooted.
Okay, so you think bringing a new system would help? How would you increase the acceptance of that system? Because already Khap Panchayat, they have a lot of acceptance within the society.
So the first thing can be done is by recruiting the local people itself in the body. For example, one can be a judicial judge who has a know-how of the judicial system, and members can be taken up from the civil society to those who know the on-field realities and the local customs and traditions. So that will increase the trust and also the expediency of the cases.
Any others, right?
To increase the trust between society.
You need to wean away the influence of the Khap Panchayats. So how do you do that?
Sir, in that case, the lower judiciary's efficiency will also have to be increased. It suffers from the problems of funds, functions, as well as functionaries, so that the cases can be more expedient. That is the major reason that Khap Panchayat get their input.
You were talking about tennis. So there is a very prominent debate about equal pay. Serena Williams has complained a lot about equal pay, and there are prominent players who say no, you should not be giving. What do you think? Even Nadal quoted that you should not get it.
Yes, sir. Sir, I believe that when you are recruited as a player, maybe through your coaching, through your tennis academy, or through your when you are representing the country, that time the pay should be equal. However, when you are participating in a tournament as an individual, then it is definitely the say of the tournament, because they are also conducting it for.
We know it is say of the tournament, but do you think it is the right thing to do to pay less to the women as compared to men? We know that the tournament are not giving equal pay.
So I believe that this question itself is problematic, because looking at in a difference of the men and women creates problem, because we can compare it to the prize money of the men and the mixed doubles or the men's doubles also. They also getting paid less. That
we're talking about individual level, men individual and female. The prize money is different.
Yes, sir.
You're not differentiating amongst different classes. This is the same. Then why there should be a gender gap?
So again, I would like to say that it is not the gender gap, but rather a business.
So you accept that it should be there?
Sir, until and unless that the women tennis is not as popular as the men's tennis, the organization would not be able to pay it out of its own pocket.
So you believe Serena Williams is wrong and Nadal is right? Okay, let's move on. Yes. You come from Haryana.
Yes, sir.
We don't hear a lot of tourism promotion in Haryana or a lot of tourism sites. What's the reason? Why tourism is not one of the major strands in Haryana's economy?
Sir, I would say that one major reason for that is the historical reason itself. That it was a frontier state, and due to a lot of wars, there was never a chance that the people could develop their own culture or tradition. So most of the cultures which are present in Haryana are either taken up from, they are a diversion of Punjabi folk culture or the Rajasthani folk culture, and it is a mix of all these.
So you agree that it is derived from the Punjabi culture, there is no culture as in Haryana?
Sir, there are some distinct points for Haryanvi culture also. However, why the tourism has not been a major focus is, I would say that it is a major reason.
Because there is no culture.
Sir, I would not say that there is no culture, but there for a tourist site to develop, there has to be a very distinct culture for that. For example, the Gidda which is performed in Punjab, that is not found anywhere else. Or
Haryana has no folk dance, no folk music.
Sir, it has Jhumar and Humar, which are again derived from.
Are you sure these are the only two?
So I have come across these two.
Okay. Recently, few years back, there was an agitation in Haryana regarding some reservation issues, and there was a loss of public property. How do you hold people responsible for that? Whom do you hold responsible for that loss of public property?
Sir, I would say that given the coming up of modern technologies, there has to be facial recognition by the use of media for the CCTV footages, because the whole community cannot be blamed for the damage of public property done by a few miscreants.
So it was just the people who were responsible. Nobody else was responsible for this. There's no role of the administration.
Sir, I don't have the exact data for that.
You read the Prakash Singh report which came after the agitation and gave the reasons for it?
Sorry, sir, I'm not aware.
Also, you talked about privilege. You said you come from a privileged background, so you could not directly relate. How do you define privilege? What is privilege?
Sir, privilege I would define as one getting the basic necessities. For example, education, healthcare.
This is how we define poverty. So you're not poor, that means you're privileged. Okay. One last thing, you mentioned rap music. Hip-hop music is often correlated with violence. It has said to be perpetrating crime. Whenever we've seen a lot of hip-hop in West, take the feud between East versus West, Tupac Biggie. So there was a lot of crime behind hip-hop. Do you agree that this is a violent genre? And why did hip-hop music never broke out in India? India is an amalgamation of a lot of cultures, but hip-hop did not come up. Why?
Sir, I would not say that it is related to violence or crime. That is the major perception of that is again because of its origin. That it was started by the African Americans, or the black population, who were jailed or tortured by the state, such as the police. So it was a type of protest which was raised against the state to get rid of these discriminations. So maybe it is because of that perception that they were involved in a lot of protests that
protest equals crime equals violence.
Sir, when, for example, even in India, the protests currently going on have broken out.
Just take an example, the war between Tupac and Biggie. Was it a protest movement? So why was there crime? And most of the hip-hop music talks about guns, money, they talk about a lot of violence. So where is the protest angle?
Sir, this influence of this culture came into hip-hop because when these rappers were jailed for no reason and they were under the jail authorities, they were given such loose shirts or they came under influence of these.
Okay, then why not in India?
So majorly because our culture was much more dominant.
Repressed classes to raise their voice in hip-hop music.
So the tradition of Indian classical music was itself very strong. So
this is a guess or you are?
I'm guessing that.
Okay. So, taking the cue from Sir's question, suddenly there seems to be a rise in rap music in India. Why? Suddenly, all of a sudden in the last few months. A lot of communication campaigns, a lot of advertising campaigns are all centered around rap music. Why?
Ma'am, it is majorly because of the catching slogans and the hard-hitting music, which influences the youngsters more.
Any other reasons you can think of in the recent times? Something that would have popularized rap music?
The mainstream coming up of it in Bollywood, the Gully Boy movie, has popularized the culture.
Right. So you have stayed in Bombay and you were talking about Dharavi.
Yes.
What is slum tourism?
Ma'am, slum tourism is that many different types of tours are conducted, majorly for tourists, majorly for foreigners in the slum areas, so as to show them how these people live or their lifestyle, their tradition.
What are the ethical concerns around this?
Ma'am, one, it definitely shows India in a bad light. The same concern which was with the movie Slumdog Millionaire, that it creates a stereotype in the minds of the foreigners about India. So that is a major concern. Also, it invades the privacy of the slum dwellers. Their lifestyle is shown to be in a very bad light, and I believe these are the major concerns.
Okay. You're from Hisar.
Yes.
And we were talking about tourism. So, you know of a place called Bluebird Lake in Hisar?
Yes.
How do you develop that into an eco-tourism hub? Suppose you're posted there and you want to really enhance the tourism potential of the district. How do you do that?
First would be to create it as a picnic hub, because it has a lake within itself, and it also has a well-built resort. So that has to be rehabilitated because it is very old. Similarly, with the lake, it has to major rehabilitation will have to be done in that also.
Rehabilitation meaning what?
Ma'am,
you mean beautification?
Yes, ma'am, beautification of the sport. And
what else? How do you generate livelihoods around tourism?
Ma'am, I would say that tourism is generally considered as a activity which can be done in different sports. So just reclaiming just one sport would not be sufficient. So, for example, there is Gujri Mahal in Hisar or the Gandhi Museum. Even those have to be taken up on the parallel, so that Hisar itself can be developed as a major tourist city.
Pertinent to Bluebird Lake, how do you develop it as a? Have you heard of this lake in Delhi called Sanjay Lake? Okay, so how do you promote tourism around that lake in Hisar? If you were posted there and that was one of your assignments, how would you do that? You mentioned beautification. Tell me some more steps.
Ma'am, the utilization of lake, for example, many activities can be started there. Whether it is some shallow area can be developed as the children pool, or the other areas, the deeper areas can be started for boating. And there has to be an awareness among the local people first, so that it becomes a tourist sport for the locals first, as in a weekend getaway. It can be developed as a dinner sport, or because it is outside the town. So as a dinner sport, coupling it with the MG resort which has been built. So the movie theatre is also present in the vicinity. So these steps can be taken.
So coming from Haryana, there's this huge fair that takes place every year around handicrafts.
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yes.
What is it called?
It is called the Suraj Kund Mela.
But why is it that Haryana per se does not have any unique crafts of its own? It does have some crafts somewhere in certain pockets of the state. But why is it that there are no crafts in Haryana? Or rather, if you were posted there again, what are those 2-3 crafts you'd like to work? And how would you promote the cultural heritage of the state?
Then I would first focus on the crafts which are already present, such as the jali work, which is famous in Karnal. Then the dance, as I mentioned, the Jhumar and Ghumar, they can be made and integrated into the government programs, or whenever there is a conference or an event of that sort, that can be integrated. Then the folk music, that is Ragni, that can be inculcated, and already the Haryanvi language is starting to dominate Bollywood also. For many movies have been made, like Dangal. So that can be a very good start for that.
Okay. You were studying painting in class 12. What type of painting was it?
Ma'am, I did not actually study painting. It was a compulsory subject which we had to choose between physical education or fine arts.
So what was what did you...
It was...
you mentioned
practical, yes. It is the practical and the theoretical, two aspects were there. So in the theoretical aspect, we studied the ancient paintings, the medieval time of India itself, like the medieval of the Mughals. But I don't remember a lot of from that.
Okay, what is cultural diplomacy?
I don't know the exact definition, but I would like to.
You could explain.
It would be a type of soft power where the culture is used to gain your national interest through diplomatic means. For example, through negotiations. For example, the Yoga Day is a good example of that, International Yoga Day. That our culture is also being spread, and we are also gaining a global image through projecting our culture, and it is being accepted by others.
Okay, suppose you get the IFS,
yes,
and you have to promote. How would you promote cultural diplomacy using music and painting, knowledge of painting? How do you do that?
And the Indian classical music definitely has very rich tradition. So again, by integrating them into our government schemes, for example, government events, for example, the recent Resina dialogue can have like a cultural night where the ending can be by Zakir Hussein's tabla program, or the Bharatnatyam dance, so that even the foreign dignitaries who are present there, they can witness the culture of India. Similarly, the outreach programs, for example, the MEA has already started the cultural centers in South Korea, in Japan. So through that, it can be done. Then also the diaspora, which is increasing day by day, they also work as the international ambassadors for the Indian culture. And they can, as Prime Minister has already quoted, that they should convince at least 2 people in their neighborhood to visit India. That would bring a holistic development to the tourism as well as our culture. So these would be my suggestions.
My final question is, how important is it to be empathetic as a civil servant? And give me an example.
Empathy will play a very crucial role, given the term itself is civil servant, and you are there to serve the society. So that has to be a major aim. However, balancing that with the law, the rule of law, that has to be done. So empathy will play a very crucial role. For example, if a person who is very poor, who does not have a ration card or the BPL card through which I can provide him the food grains or at a subsidized cost, I would make it my priority that if he does not have those documents, first those documents are on a fast track basis, they are made, and then he is provided with that with the availability of the food grains, so that both the motives are fulfilled. Thank you.
Okay, Aprajit, what is superconductivity?
So, superconductivity is, I don't know the exact definition for this. but it is done at very low temperatures, and superconductors are developed for that. They have a very minimal resistance and very high conduction rate.
Alright, for a liquid to be a good conductor of electricity, what factor should be present?
Sorry, sir, I'm not sure.
Alright. Well, you said you did some bit of painting, some theoretical and some practical part of it. Can you draw a map of India roughly on the paper that is right in front of you? Good. So this is the map of India.
So roughly,
What's missing?
can I see? So the northwest part has become very linear.
For sure.
He's asking what's missing.
So the Andaman Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep Islands.
So, prone to making mistakes. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
You are prone to making mistakes.
Yes, sir, definitely.
All right. And, I would ask you very categorically to answer this question because you had participated in that debate. You agree with what Rafael Nadal says, or do you agree with what Serena Williams says on the issue of equal payment to male and female workers? That question was asked, you ducked it, but you have to answer that because you participated in the debate. There has to be a conclusion.
Sir, if it is a debate on male versus female, then I would say that they have to be given equal pay.
The question was what you left there.
Yes, sir.
Whom do you agree? Both of them have given their arguments.
Their arguments cannot change on the nature of the bill, right?
Sir, I would say that it is the prerogative of the tournament, so they will have to decide for that.
Alright. So thank you, Rajat. If you could wait for a few minutes, we'll call you back.
Thank you, sir.
Please. Right. So, how many marks have you appeared in?
Till now,
Now?
I have given two, like second and one for that.
Okay, well, for that. Are you feeling well practiced or too well practiced? Are you feeling? I'm asking how you feel.
My feeling? No, sir. Like, even in this mock, I got very new questions. So, new areas were covered.
New areas are covered.
Yes.
How is the feeling? Could you identify any of your weaknesses?
Sir, I have noticed one thing in all the mocks that I start good, but till the end it becomes a bit problematic. I don't know if I get nervous or something, but my mind stops working. I can't recall points.
Do you feel nervous? Were you feeling nervous at any point in time?
So mainly in the opinion questions, I try to be a bit balanced and
You are afraid.
yes, sir.
Aparajit means undefeated,
Yes, sir.
not invincible. Invincible would be aparajay.
Okay.
But sit, fine. Alright. I liked your answer. All of us liked your personality. I liked your articulation. But is it the case that you are thinking faster than you are speaking, or you are speaking faster than you are thinking?
I think I'm speaking more than what is required.
Yes, that is happening. So somewhere you have to define your parameters, and with your level of articulation, beating around the bush would look beautiful till a point, but then it would become repetitive over a length of time. Okay, that is what would happen. So you have to be crisp.
Yes.
All right, you have to be to the point.
Yes.
So at times when you are being pushed towards an opinion, you start with a very promising note that this person is going to take a stand and articulate it and defend it, but towards the end that fizzles out. Okay, that particular stand, that particular clarity. Alright, otherwise you are very articulate, we all like your personality and we all wish you to do well in the interview and get into the services. Alright, because you seem to be that kind of a candidate. Alright, that is our overall opinion. Try and not give an answer, a wrong answer with confidence. Alright, that may also happen with you.
Okay, sir.
Alright, so that's why it is important to define your own boundaries. ज़्यादा जहाँ लगे ज़्यादा बोल ना हो रहा है वहाँ पे थोड़ा गलत हो सकता है. ठीक है? Alright, sir.
Prajit, again, very good personality in terms of your speech also, your thinking also. You were unique also in the way you proposed to the water, Panitaran. That was good, right? But in terms of certain questions, for example, especially your rap music wala domain, you need to be more prepared. Then in terms of, for example, in 2 to 3 questions, I felt that you were taking government's stand blatantly. For example, in terms of the budget, you said the government has done very well. Right? You could be more balanced in that particular answer. Then, when sir were asking you questions on differentiation between philosophy, theory, you could be more structured. Because I felt that you were not able to give an answer.
Yes.
So you can say something like this, sir, I can make subsets, concentric circles, something like this.
Okay.
Just to be more structured. Right? And then in my specific questions in terms of Palestine, you mentioned for a resolution, but again, when sir asked you that you were not aware. So,
sir, is it UNESCO?
See, India's proposal initially at the United Nations, which was not accepted, contained this proposal that Jerusalem should be a joint capital. That is called the Minority Plan of the UN 1948.
Okay.
Right? So UNESCO has that kind of line also. But it would be difficult to find an exact resolution saying that it should be a joint capital. The position is the status of Jerusalem, because since the problem is you are mentioning all sorts of things, generating interest. You are saying Oslo peace process. But the Oslo peace process said that Jerusalem's status should be decided after the negotiations. Alright, it was one of the last questions to be negotiated in the Oslo peace process.
Okay.
Alright. So you have to be structured. Internal contradictions have to be avoided. You went to another extreme. That was a good idea. But ultimately, you have already mentioned that your framework is Oslo peace process. But anyone who knows Oslo peace process knows that the whole idea is that the state of Jerusalem should be decided on the basis of negotiations. And the end result of that negotiation is recognition for Israel, peace for Israel, and state for the Palestinians. Alright? So that's a noble idea. But then you have to decide how much to include and how much not to. Right?
Yes. Yes.
what is the rating?
17th February. First day.
Yes. So, go with confidence. You'll do very good. But yes, you can brush up on some things. But for example, on this question or some question like why IAS, it's a good approach to bring up humanistic angle that my dadi and all. But at the same time, give some concrete point also. I want to be part of the administrative system or something like this. Right? But overall, no need to bring any major changes. Just go with the confidence and with this particular approach.
Thank you.
So, Rajat, some positives that I have also. Very patient, a very good demeanor, you took pauses, and spontaneity was being checked in that proposal on a question, and you did well. Really did well. But I found few of your answers as artificial in the sense that why civil services? You started with serving the society and you would be put in a situation where why not others? So you were good, but you could not come out of that. So be more honest. It's fine. You have to be part of the system. That's you're seeing it as a career. So and economic concepts you have to revise. I think you're being very uncomfortable there. And these are very basics. I mean, nothing. And since your interview is in the first day, so you can expect a lot of questions from economic survey, budget, how is India doing economic. And even in cases of chemical engineering, not much was explored here because of whatever paucity of time also. So you can expect questions as to how chemical engineering can do and please brush up all those basics.
Reverse special tombstones, reverse SEs.
So all those things. And even one of the things that when I asked you about soft power and optional being PSIR, you should directly come to the point. It should not take you time to think of examples. You can talk about religion, what is India doing by calling. We had a Buddhist conference. So yoga, everything you could come.
Afghanistan.
You just
I went to Africa. I don't know.
So initially you were very good,
Yes.
but then you, as you could point out, and even
Which was not a wrong example, by the way.
Yes, but I could not remember ITEC
You could not substantiate.
Yes, sir.
And even for tourism, when sir was asking you, you actually avoided that, saying that we had copied mine. So that was like you're demeaning your own state.
Yes, sir.
And later on, when ma'am asked, you actually pointed out with respect to the late caller, you started bringing out the cultural aspects. So it was contradicting. So please make sure. Tourism and even social indicators like women-related issues, sex ratios can be explored. Otherwise, on information level, that is just perfect. Rest of this fine.
Yes.
All the best.
Most of the things have been covered. One observation I have is the things you prepared. You were very articulate, you were very clear. 1, 2 things, yes, you can brush up, but you were trying to avoid the uncomfortable situations. Even with the debate, I did not ask you which stand you take. You avoided the question. Even sir gave you the chance. Again, you said tournament organizer. Tournament organizer ka pata hai. We are asking you, we are giving you the chance. Take a stand. And you have already given the reasons. You said, yes, it is a commercial tournament and prize money matters. So I think Rafal Nadal said the right thing. Serena Williams, because she's not that popular as him, so she's not earning that. वो आपने reason दे दिया है, तो बोल दो ये stand. Even in this stand, in Khapanchayat you were prepared. So you took a stand. You said no, we have to develop alternate mechanisms और लो, वो आपने कर लिया और stand लिया. Similarly, tourism में भी जैसे आप duck किया आपने और दूसरी जगह चले गए. So सीधा you should not avoid uncomfortable situations. If you have logic, take a stand.
Yes.
And Haryana ka yes, brush up this tourism and also the agitation, caste, Haryana issue specific, there are 3-4 major issues you can. And for that, if you have time, there is the economic survey of Haryana. So tourism, pura aspect they cover. Okay, what are we doing? What are areas? Even sports, what are we doing to improve? What are we doing for caste? What are we doing for women? There was a question on women. You said Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. There's a Ladli scheme by the Haryana government. If you just brush up, you'll have everything on Haryana.
Yes. So, which was the report you said about that?
Economic, that's the Prakash Singh report.
Even on tourism, I think you mentioned one saying that it is a frontier state and since it was involved in wars, it could not have culture of our own. But there are other states like Maharashtra, Maratha, they were also in constant war, but they had developed
So there were wars, why not celebrate those events? So there's a lot of tourism potential. If you read, you'll come to know.
Yes.
So say exactly. I mean, Haryana as a state. I mean, it hosts Surajkund Mela. लेकिन अपना उनका कोई आप जाओगे भी सूरजकुंड पे. Generally, if anyone goes there, so they will see that there are few stalls from Haryana, but not anything peculiar, right? So it just could be asked. फिर आपका interview भी 17 को है. सूरजकुंड भी अभी ही लगता है मेला 15 दिन के लिए. इसलिए मैंने सवाल पूछा था. तो tourism and crafts ये 2-3 चीजें आपको करनी चाहिए. Also, I asked you a question particularly on crafts in Surajkund because you mentioned painting. Painting stands out in your DAF, and then of course music. And therefore the question on cultural diplomacy. Why cultural diplomacy? Because you're a student of IAS and IR, right? So these are the interconnections you need to work on. And क्योंकि आप हरियाणा से आते हो, तो वहाँ पे टूरिज्म वाली बात हो गई, इको टूरिज्म वाली बात हो गई, सस्टेनेबल टूरिज्म, ये सारी चीजें are very important, right? So and otherwise, of course, your personality is great, good demeanor, very placid, calm composure. Really like the spontaneity there. So I think you should do well.
Thank you.
Right, you write your name only as Aprajit.
Yes.
And you sign your name with
Singh.
a surname.
Singh, sir. That is not a surname.
Singh, Aprajit Singh.
Yes, sir.
That is a very common surname. Is there any reason?
No, sir. Just father didn't want to use the surname because of the caste.
So why is it in your signature?
Singh can be used by any caste. That is not
So
specific.
that was your decision.
Yes, sir.
To write,
Singh.
to sign it like that. Maybe somebody notices. Should be prepared with that also. You're articulating really well. Your DAF is the most interesting. Alright, of all the candidates that we met today. In my personal opinion, your exposure or the breadth of areas that you can talk about is something that makes you a very interesting candidate. Hopefully, you get a board that can do justice with your personality. But then you have to definitely decide your own parameters and boundaries. है ना? कहाँ तक जाना है और कहाँ तक नहीं जाना. Please don't get carried away. All the very best to you. All the very
And
best.
one thing, rap music has been like I asked you, why is it that so many advertising and communication campaigns are centered around rap music? So you can just look up some examples as to how rap music. So I read a report, I think it was before the Lok Sabha elections. Then some district, I don't know, some officer, CEO or the PM, they actually involved rap music and they they, under the aegis of the sweep plan. Okay, which is centered on voter awareness and voter participation. तो आप इस तरह के कुछ examples पढ़ लीजिए. Even वो IFS वाला question आप posted हो, कैसे music and painting को आप combine करके cultural diplomacy को strengthen करेंगे. इस तरीके के कई real examples exist करते हैं. Twitter पे इतने सारे लोग अपने initiatives को बताते हैं. तो आप वो थोड़ा और भी इसको कर सकते हो. Rap music particularly because it's very interesting and maybe they'll ask you questions.
Yes.
एक जो ग्रुप की सर्विस का आपका पेपर भरेंगे
Yes, sir.
उस पे भी थोड़ा प्रिपेयर कीजिए. ठीक है, राइट द क्वेश्चन.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
All the best.
Thank you.